Hello, good morning. This is Dr. Cool Autofix. Welcome back to my channel. If you come in here for the first time, kindly subscribe and turn on your notification on. In today's video, I'm gonna be teaching you top 9 way to tell if your car AC compressor is overheating. Compressor overheating is most oftentimes noticed by car owners, drivers, or even mechanics, except in extreme situation for any reason which they're out of curiosity trying to find out, and it's often not the first judgment call, but maybe later on when things have actually gone bad for quite a lot of times, like clutch burning and some other related problems that can be stemming from compressor overheating. Compressor overheating most often times will lead to compressor catastrophic failure, and it's not always cheap, but in parts and in labor. And that is why you want to pay a very good attention and listen very carefully to this very video, to what I'm going to tell you in this very video, because you're going to be standing a chance of saving your compressor from destroying. Compressor have pistons. Compressors are, technically speaking, an engine just in another way, only that they don't take intake of fuel or create combustion, but it compresses refrigerant just like your engine compresses air and fuel. So the first way to tell if your car AC is overheating is intermittent cooling. If you started noticing that your car AC system cools sometimes and blow warm sometimes, you might be thinking that it could be one sensor or the other that's responsible, which you obviously not absolutely wrong. There are other sensors that can actually create exactly the same scenario. But if all the sensors are in a very good condition, then likely you are definitely having a compressor that is overheating, because when the system is cooling sometimes and not cool sometimes, that is some sort of a telltale sign of a compressor that is having a hard day trying to adjust its parameter to the to working smooth and cooling the cabin, blowing cold and keeping the cabin cool. And in such situation, you can rescue it by first of all trying to find out exactly why this problem is coming on. It could be the clutch is incorrectly gapped, or some other internal structural related problems. The second way to tell if your car AC compressor is overheating is when your car AC is working and you take a hand fill at the suction line. The suction line is bigger pipe, while the liquid line is a smaller pipe. If you take a hand fill at the suction line and it is barely cold and not cold enough, at this very point, there's every tendency that there is a restriction inside the system that is not allowing the cold refrigerant vapor coming back to cool the compressor. In such situation, that's exactly what happens, because hand fill at the suction is actually trying to internally, like a dipstick. Your hand fill at the suction is like a dipstick to know if there is a sufficient cold refrigerant returning back to the compressor to cool the compressor, because it's still the same cold compressor, cold refrigerant that cools inside the cabin that comes back to cool the compressor. And if there is none, then that is an indicative that your compressor is overheating, even though if you're feeling that the inside cabin is cold enough. Number three way to know if your compressor is overheating is if your compressor click on and click off, click on and click off. Sometimes when your compressor click on and click off, it's actually normal, pretty much normal. But that is if it does it periodically in a periodic sequence. Let's say it does it for like 2 minutes or a minute and it stops, and it does it again, especially when you have the fan speed at either 2 or 1, then that is pretty much normal. But if suppose the fan speed is at 4 or half of the full duty fan cycle and the compressor clicks on and off, there is 90% chance that that compressor is overheating, is having a hard time to maintain a balance or have a smooth operation. So it's trying to fizzle out to know if suppose it could actually create a balance. So that is why the power disengage and disengage. And this is most often times with a car AC compressor that is equipped with clutch. The non-clutch will not, you won't see that coming in non-clutch AC compressor that's clutchless. And the fourth way to actually know if your compressor is overheating is obvious. If your compressor is like most American model where you can actually be able to locate it easily and touch it, you take a hand feel at the body. If the compressor is hot to touch, then it's really overheating. If it is warm to touch, then it could be in a very good condition if you confirmed some of the information which I've presented to you before this very moment here with the suction line. If it is a very cold to touch, then that's a sign that the compressor is having a very good day, a sunny, brighter day, and days full of rainbows and sunshines. Fifth way to tell if your compressor is overheating is a fluctuation of the pressure readings if you're using a manifold gauge set on your car AC compressor to check the pressure readings. Getting a constant reading is a sign that the compressor is good to go and rocking and rolling and happy and smiling and sharing a very good stories and memories of future time to come. But if you're having a fluctuation of both the high side as much as the low side, then there is every tendency that that compressor is actually overheating and it's more like a time bomb awaiting the time for detonation. And sometimes you might not see this fluctuation on the both side of the gauge. You might just be noticing that or some certain vibration on the high side of the gauge. If you're noticing the high side of the gauge vibrating, sometimes it's not actually an attribution of overheating compressor, but a compressor that have a problem with a valve. So what would you do to save it? Well, some case adding oil can suffice, and sometimes if the system already have oil inside, that is if in a situation where your car system car is leaking refrigerant. The sixth way to know if your car AC compressor is overheating is if you have a refrigerant leak. You have the system is leaking of refrigerant. And most practice, which I've seen most people do, which is the worst terrible service, is quickly going to charge it up with refrigerant without taking into account the amount of oil that have lost inside the system, because the oil is playing a critical role in lubricating the AC compressor parts, moving parts to keep them in a healthy condition from extreme wear and tear. Just like the blood flows through your veins and arteries and all the part of your body which the heart pumps. It's exactly the same way the AC compressor pumps refrigerant, and it does that smoothly. The smooth operation of your compressor depends on the oil. So when you have AC, when the system leaks of refrigerant, it loses oil likewise. So if you charge it up with refrigerant and you're thinking that it's running cool or blowing cold, well, the compressor is actually picking up a sensible temperature because it's lost some significant amount of oil and it will fail soon. If it's in Hyundai or Kia, you won't buy any too much time. The compressor will fail in no time. Seventh way to know if your car AC compressor is overheating is if you turn on your AC system and you pay a very close attention. First of all, turn on your car engine, allow it to run, then observe the sound. Then next, turn on your AC system and observe sound. If there is a variation in sound aside from the noise from a clicking clutch, then let's say like a rattling noise, like rat-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, you know, if you heard any sound like that, then there is every tendency that the compressor is losing its nut. And most of the times, this can actually be an attribution of a low oil, insufficient oil for lubrication. And when that is happening, believe me when I say the compressor is overheating and it will fail in no time. So be sure to quickly arrest it before the situation gets out of hand. So in conclusion of that very side, a noisy compressor is overheating compressor. Have it there at the back of your mind. 8 ways to know if your car AC compressor is on its way going to rest in peace or relocating to a cemetery is if you find out that your AC button light is blinking or flashing. If your AC button light is flashing, especially if Toyota, that's an indicative that the compressor speed is lesser than the engine speed, and most of the times a sleeping clutch is actually where that problem is stemming from. When your clutch is sleeping, your compressor is definitely overheating, and where the target is actually going to be focusing its attention there is the entire clutch system, the coil, the pulley, the bearings, and the clutch plate itself. So when you notice that your compressor clutch is suddenly sleeping or running slower than the engine RPMs, if you turn on your car, then there is every tendency that your AC compressor is overheating, but you just don't know it yet. And sooner, the rubber is gonna be all over the place and smelling, and your AC compressor is gonna stop working. The 9th way to tell if your car AC compressor is overheating is if you turn on the AC system and you're noticing the AC system blowing warm or slightly cold but not cold enough. Slightly cold can be a situation where you turn on the AC system and the radiator fan did not come on. When the radiator fan didn't come on when you turn on the AC system, meanwhile the clutch is engaged, or even if it's a clutchless system, you're noticing that the AC compressor is still running, instantly there's going to be a problem because the compressor is going to be compressing the refrigerant at a high ratio, let's say from between 200 to 500 psi, and from that very moment right there, it is like a time bomb because the pistons is going to break sooner, as the compressor is not only overheating, it's overstressed, and that compressor is going to fail in a very short period without wasting time. So quickly you want to shut down the AC system and rectify the fan problem as soon as possible before turning on the AC system. The 10th way to know if your car AC compressor is overheating is when you step into your car and turn on your AC system and you are getting a mist of some sort of slightly cold air coming out of the vent. When you're getting a slightly cold air coming out of the vent, there are a lot of factors that can actually cause it, but most common causes is a restriction inside the system. A restriction can be caused by either a blocked expansion valve, a bad expansion valve, or some other influences. And although if suppose your expansion valve is in very good condition, that doesn't mean that if you have a clogged condenser that is not actively working as it should, that the AC compressor will not overheat. That is something which you have to understand. Then the 11th way to know if your car AC compressor is overheating, if suppose you discover that your car AC compressor that have clutch constantly run, even when you reduce the speed, the fan speed, the blower motor fan speed to like 2 or 1, the AC compressor continuously runs. Well, that's an indicator that the compressor is definitely picking up a sensible heat, and this heat is going to increase and build up over time, and when that happens, the compressor is going to fail. So guys, I hope you find this very helpful to resolving a car compressor overheating issues that you might encounter. If you think anything otherwise from what I've taught you in this very video here, well, drop it in the comment section. I believe that you've known quite much more. You are more advanced and much more experienced than I am to top up my own knowledge and experience. But if you don't have, then kindly give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, share this video with others. I remain Dr. Cool Auto Fix. I'll catch you guys later. Bye for now.